Be wise all, take new Zizol.
Hurricane Maria, a powerful Category 5 storm, makes landfall tonight on the island of Dominica. Let's go right to meteorologist Pedram Zavahiri at the CNN.
Some 30+ times the population increase there as you work your way down towards an area it's impacting right now. But look at this incredible growth of the storm system from going 80 miles per hour as a weak Category 1 hurricane yesterday at 8 p.m. up to 160 miles per hour, essentially doubling its wind speed within 24 hours. And again, entering an area here where it's certainly conducive to maintain the intensity depending on how it interacts with Dominica. But here's the track. We think somewhere around eastern Puerto Rico, Wednesday around, say, 12, 1, 2 p.m. into the afternoon hours. This storm can move ashore as a Category 5. Beyond that, it works its way towards the Turks and Caicos into Thursday and Friday. And then that right turn is expected as it heads north, paralleling the Bahamas. But you think about that, a Category 5 in Puerto Rico, that has not happened since 1928. That 1928 storm that made landfall as a Cat 5 was also at 160 miles per hour. The last time even a Category 4 occurred in Puerto Rico was some 80 years ago. So it tells you the rarity, the significance of the storm system for a lot of people here over the next 24 hours. And we're watching a couple scenarios here play out, Don, with scenario 1 essentially being a massive area of high pressure just east of Bermuda, which can guide the storm and parallel it up the eastern seaboard and potentially bring it and pull it back away from the United States. Scenario 2 is if this high pressure shifts and nudges a little to the west, it can essentially create a little more resistance for the storm and force it to take the path of least resistance, which would be pushing very close to the eastern United States, potentially impacting portions across the East Coast. So again, we're going to watch this carefully and break down exactly what the models have right now, the European and the American. Very good agreement here, Don, that will move right ashore over Puerto Rico by midweek. And then beyond this, you notice the European, which has been very reliable with recent storms, picks this up and fortunately skirts it offshore. The American is not there yet. It is beginning to trend that way, Don, but it is something we're going to follow, of course, going into late this week.
Absolutely, Pedram. And Pedram will have a new update for us at the top of the hour, and we'll check back in a few minutes and see how Maria changes. Thank you, sir. Just ahead, we'll go live to Puerto Rico, preparing for what could be a direct hit from Hurricane Maria.
Hey, guys. I've sent our constant contact email.
Coming.
Great numbers, guys. Great job.
Send great-looking emails that drive big results for your business.
Doris is down.
Constant Contact Email Marketing. Powerful stuff.
After a DVT blood clot, I sure had a lot on my mind. My 30-year marriage, my 3-month-old business. Plus, what if this happened again? I was given warfarin in the hospital, but wondered, was this the best treatment for me? So I made a point to talk to my doctor. He told me about Eliquis. Eliquis treats DVT and PE blood clots and reduces the risk of them happening again. Not only does Eliquis treat DVT and PE blood clots, Eliquis also had significantly less major bleeding than the standard treatment. Eliquis had both, and that turned around my thinking.
Don't stop Eliquis unless your doctor tells you to. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. If you had a spinal injection while on Eliquis, call your doctor right away if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. While taking Eliquis, you may bruise more easily, and it may take longer than usual for bleeding to stop. Seek immediate medical care for sudden signs of bleeding, like unusual bruising. Eliquis may increase your bleeding risk if you take certain medicines. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures.
Eliquis treats DVT and PE blood clots, plus had less major bleeding. Both made Eliquis right for me. Ask your doctor if switching to Eliquis is right for you.
It was the crime that shocked the nation.
What these boys did is not the issue.
Emmy Award winner Edie Falco stars.
It's why they did it.
Law & Order True Crime, The Menendez Murders premieres September 26th on NBC.
Welcome to the no pressure zone. Carl, have you met everyone? You see, time is just a construct of human perception, an illusion, like this one.
Help! I can't breathe!
Which means there's no pressure to get a great rate on a hotel. They're available for an unlimited time, always. So book now, or don't. No pressure.
10 seasons on CNN. How the did that happen?
Hey!
Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown is back.
The 10th season was the strangest. Oh, it's soft. Wildest, most creative season yet.
So what's the secret to making it this far?
Alcohol.
Season 10 of Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown starts Sunday, October 1st at 9 on CNN.
Introducing FreePrints, the free app that lets you get all those great photos off your iPhone or Android and into your hands in just days. FreePrints lets you print up to 1,000 4x6 photos a year absolutely free. All you pay is a small shipping and handling charge. It's easy. Just select the photos you want to print on your phone or on Facebook or Instagram, then choose the quantities, and you're done. The app is free and so are the prints. No subscriptions, no commitments. Get FreePrints today. Just go to freeprints.tv. That's freeprints.tv.
I won this 55-inch TV for less than $30 on DealDash.com.
I got this $1,200 computer for $100.71.
These aren't actors, they're real people who got real savings at DealDash.com, the fair and honest bidding site. At DealDash.com, you can save up to 99%, but hurry, everything must go.
And shipping is always free.
Visit DealDash.com and start bidding today.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Our breaking news, powerful Hurricane Maria, Category 5 storm making landfall in Dominica. That's as the governor of Puerto Rico warns residents tonight that the storm is likely to cause catastrophic damage to the island. CNN's Leila Santiago is in San Juan for us. Leila, hello to you. Category 5, this major hurricane expected to make landfall in Puerto Rico. The last time this happened was 1928. What's it like there now? How are people preparing tonight, Leila?
You know, as we were out and about, even on the southern part of the island today, where it really is expected to take quite the hit, people were really taken to these warnings, really out and about. In the stores, there were lines for water, people trying to get their hands on generators, which pretty much seems impossible here right now. Even though there was no school, a lot of businesses were already closing down. There was quite a bit of traffic as people were out and about just trying to make last-minute preparations for Hurricane Maria, which was a little bit different. I got to tell you, Don, a little bit different from what we saw during Irma. Certainly there were preparations underway, but I made sure to ask all the people I sort of talked to on the streets today if this was different, and there seems to be an understanding that, yeah, this is different. And remember, I was talking to people before it became a Category 5. People here really understanding that because we are expecting direct landfall and because it has been, as you mentioned, decades, they really fear the devastation, the destruction that could be ahead with Maria.
Leila, Puerto Rico took in a lot of evacuees during Hurricane Irma. Are those people still in shelters tonight, even as we speak?
Still in shelters tonight, more than 100 of them at last check with government officials, many of them right now at the Puerto Rico Convention Center, which we visited as well. And we actually talked to one man, a 22-year-old guy from the British Virgin Islands, and he was telling us that he felt that he had been welcomed here, that there was a lot of help, but he was concerned because he still had family in Virgin Gorda, where he's from. So, and he was actually concerned that perhaps they didn't even know that Maria was on the way, given that the communication lines are still not so great over there. So still evacuees on this island. Those numbers seem to be going down quite a bit as they make their way to other destinations. But Puerto Rico not only bracing for a storm themselves, but still housing some that managed to escape from their home islands destroyed by Irma.
Leila Santiago in San Juan, Puerto Rico for us. Thank you, Leila. Appreciate that. This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. It is 11 p.m. on the East Coast, and we've got a lot of breaking news for you tonight, including a CNN exclusive. We're learning tonight that government investigators wiretapped former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort under secret court orders before and after the election. The New York Times reporting tonight that prosecutors told Manafort they plan to indict him. And we've got a brand new forecast for extremely dangerous Hurricane Maria, a Category 5 storm that made landfall on the island of Dominica tonight. Let's get right to CNN's Pedram Javahiri. He is in the CNN Severe Weather Center, in the Weather Center for us. You've just got a new advisory from the National Hurricane Center. What can you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. They're saying some slight weakenings being noticed with this storm system. They have not dropped the wind speed on this, Don, because the hurricane reconnaissance craft has to fly into it. It is currently going over land, about to clear and come back over the Caribbean at this point. So they're waiting for the storm system to clear land before they can fly into it and get the latest observation. But I use that analogy of, say, a top on a table as it spins, and if it hits an imperfection, it begins to kind of wobble a little bit. And the storm kind of showing that right now as it runs into portions of Dominica. And I want to talk about this region as well, because this is one of the most mountainous islands across portions of the Leeward Islands. So you think about Barbuda, where Irma made landfall, not very mountainous whatsoever, completely flat. But in this region, we're talking about some areas having mountains go up as high as 4,700 feet. So that'll certainly do tremendous damage to the storm system as it moves over this region. But of course, it clears it and goes back over very warm waters. So intensity, really not a concern as far as seeing it potentially drop. And then we think it could strengthen again beyond that. But 160 miles per hour, so a healthy Category 5 right now as it pushes over an area home to some 75,000 people at this hour. Really an incredible storm here. And you watch the track, we think this will skirt to the north and west, potentially make landfall around eastern Puerto Rico sometime early Wednesday afternoon, somewhere between a strong Category 4 or a Category 5. This will be the first time since the 1930s that Puerto Rico has been impacted by anything a Category 4 or greater. So certainly a big story across that region. And then you notice the track begins to shift. This is what we wanted to, of course, see for Irma during this entire duration. We never saw that turn until it was too late and began to push up towards Florida. But model guidance on this, very confident that this will begin to push in towards eastern Puerto Rico by midweek. And then it becomes a little more dicey as far as when it turns and where it turns, depending on the steering currents in the atmosphere. And really, one thing I want to talk about here is we've compared Andrew to Irma in the last few days, the last few weeks, but this storm and Andrew have a lot more in common. They're a lot more compact, almost the exact same size. Wind speed at landfall with this moving over portions of Dominica, almost identical to when Andrew moved over South Florida. The hurricane wind radius, about 25 miles. Remember with Irma, it was a large one here with about 70 or so mile wind radius, and tropical storm force winds extend about 100 miles away from the storm as well. But there's the confidence on Puerto Rico's landfall being high, and then the disparity comes in midweek with the European model. That's right there in blue, Don. It begins to really push the storm system offshore. The American kind of hangs out a little bit and meanders off the eastern coastline. But regardless, this is a significant storm that'll move ashore, we think, over Puerto Rico here sometime by mid this week. And I want to break something down here, show you the comparison with Irma and the track we have with this coming in as Maria. It is a little to the south here, but it will begin a right turn far earlier. So we think it'll cross somewhere around areas just north of the Dominican Republic. Notice the Turks and Caicos could be in line here for a second major hurricane landfall within about a 10-day period. So it really shows you what some of these regions, I was just talking to one of my producers saying that I really hope these folks are not trying to put things back together right now, because of course it would make no sense at this point, because another major hurricane is coming through and you go back to starting at square one here. So it's really a sobering thought of what's happening across the Caribbean.
Potential, yeah, it all being torn apart again. Thank you, Pedram. I appreciate that. I'm going to get to the phone now and get to Puerto Rico's Governor Richard Rosello. He joins us now. Governor, thank you so much for joining us. The last time a Category 5 hurricane made landfall in Puerto Rico was 1928. Is your territory ready for Maria?
Well, Don, we're as ready as we can be. Of course, this sort of event is a very dangerous event. High winds, a slow storm, a lot of rainfall, and this coming just about 2 weeks after Irma skidded up the northeast of Puerto Rico. So we've made preparations. We focused on really what the only thing that matters right now, which is making sure people are safe. So we have 500 shelters, moving people to those shelters, and hopefully weathering the storm so that we can rebuild Puerto Rico again.
You warn your residents, Governor, that Hurricane Maria is unlike anything Puerto Rico has ever seen before. How bad do you expect this to be?
Well, it's catastrophic. There's no other way to put it. You know, we're going to be feeling tropical storm winds for about 2.5 days. We're going to be feeling sustained high-level hurricane winds for the better part of a day. We're going to have a lot of water. The floor is already saturated, so the flooding areas are very dangerous here in Puerto Rico. So these things make it a very dangerous storm, and what we want to make sure is that people are safe. So we've made every effort to have people go to our shelters or to identify shelters that are safe from their families. So the next couple of hours before we start feeling the tropical storm winds are going to be focused mainly on that.
Governor, we wish you the best. Thank you so much, and we'll check back with you. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've got much more on this monster storm coming up here on CNN tonight. But now I want to turn to our CNN exclusive. Sources say U.S. investigators wiretapped former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort under a secret court order before and after the election. Here to discuss all of this now is Fareed Zakaria, host of CNN's Fareed Zakaria GPS. Mr. Zakaria, good to have you on. I want to get your reaction to this breaking news that the government wiretapped the former Trump chairman Paul Manafort before and after the election. What do you think?
Well, if what we know about Paul Manafort and his dealings, it certainly seemed as though there were a lot of things that he was doing that were, shall we say, unorthodox, that he was playing footsie with a lot of governments, with a lot of opposition movements that were unsavory, that there were large cash transfers. I'm talking about in the millions and millions of dollars. So it doesn't surprise me that, it appears that there's something here that is a violation of the law. Obviously, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. But certainly on the basis of what we had read in places like the New York Times and the Washington Post, Paul Manafort had played, it seemed as though he had done things that were, at the very least, touching the edge of the law, if not crossing over.
It was interesting because I remember doing the initial tweets by President Trump saying inaccurately that the former president had wiretapped Trump Tower. Many people pointed out that Paul Manafort had an apartment in Trump Tower and that the president could possibly be caught up in some incidental communication or collection, but because they were interested in Paul Manafort, who had a residence in Trump Tower.
It's possible. My guess is that the American intelligence community and law enforcement are more discreet and discriminating than that. They would not have, kind of almost accidentally dealt with Trump because they were dealing with somebody in the same building. If they were going after Paul Manafort or they were eavesdropping on Manafort, they would be doing that. But, it raises this larger issue, which is that there are so many people associated with the Trump campaign that seem to have had dealings not just with Russia, but with oligarchs in Russia and Ukraine, with the Turkish government. We know about Michael Flynn. The whole thing does have the feeling of people who are very comfortable peddling influence with people who you're not supposed to peddle influence with. Look, peddling influence is allowed and legal in the United States. That's called lobbying. But there are rules about it, and there are particular rules about what you can do with foreigners. And this has always been an issue because foreigners try to influence the United States. It's the most powerful country in the world. Governments all over the world try it directly and indirectly through sources to somehow get America to change its policy, get American foreign policy changed. And there are, as a result, rules about what you can and cannot do. It does, as I said, it does appear that at the very least, Paul Manafort seems to have played footsie with some of those rules.
I want to bring in our Justice correspondent, Pamela Brown, who broke this story with Simone Procopez and also Evan Perez, both of CNN as well. Pamela, I'm interested in learning more about what you're learning, and also will the president now use this as some sort of evidence that, yes, he was right, that he had been wiretapped in Trump Tower?
Well, his supporters on Twitter, if you look, they certainly are. What's interesting here is there were two FISA court warrants. The first one was related to his dealings with the former ruler of the Ukraine. And then the second one happened sometime before the election and went through after the election until at least early this year. And in that same time frame, Don, while Paul Manafort, the former campaign chairman, was under surveillance, sources tell us that he was also talking periodically with the president. And so the big question is, were any of these conversations with the president swept up as part of the surveillance on Paul Manafort? You'll recall, Don, that months ago, Donald Trump tweeted that President Obama was tapping his wires at Trump Tower. So what the Justice Department has done in the wake of that is come out and said, no, the FBI was never tapping the president's phone, but what is still unclear is whether his conversations were picked up. And we should also mention that Paul Manafort does have a residence in Trump Tower, though it's not clear whether the FBI was using surveillance on him at Trump Tower. Don?
Okay, so then the initial investigation, Pamela, started in 2014. It was stopped. I believe what the reporting is that for lack of evidence, I'm not exactly sure. And then it was picked up again, but it's not exactly sure when it was picked up and if it's the same investigation or two different investigations. I don't know.
Well, there are two different investigations. So you have the Yanukovych investigation that began in 2014 and
24 megapixel clearer selfie. Vivo camera and music.
The capacity to pick up a city and move it inland 20 miles. This is happening faster than our ability to respond.
Interesting. He says it might be too late to recover at a time when there is a rift with allies over the president's decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. There was some confusion this weekend over whether the president was reconsidering. What do you make of all that?
I think the president is not reconsidering. I think this is too important to his base. It's largely symbolic, as you know. It doesn't mean much. But I think that Neil deGrasse Tyson raises a very important point, which is we are probably past the point of simply having a strategy which is about stopping global warming. What we need now is a strategy to mitigate, to adapt to global warming, because it is happening. I think that we can all see that it's happening by the increased strength of these hurricanes, the increased fury of these forest fires, the increased temperature, 17 or 18 of the hottest years in the history, since we're in recorded history in the last 20. So what does that mean? We have got to have a serious conversation about do we need to start planning to build dikes in New York the way that they did in Holland? Do we need to start building fortifications in Miami? Do we need to start incentivizing people to, in fact, start moving inland? Do we need to start figuring out agricultural crop rotations? Do we need new patterns of irrigation? I think that climate change is so real at this point, it's not an academic debate. And unfortunately for those who just want to talk about stopping it, I think we're past that point. We've got to think about how we will adapt as a country and as a planet to the reality. There's all that carbon dioxide in the air already. No matter what, we all start driving Priuses tomorrow. That stuff isn't coming down.
Fareed Zakaria, thank you, sir. When we come back, big developments in the Russia investigation, what it all means for a White House in chaos, plus extremely dangerous Hurricane Maria slamming the Caribbean tonight. We'll go live to the storm zone.
You won't see these folks at the post office. They have businesses to run. They have passions to pursue. How do they avoid trips to the post office? Stamps.com. Mail letters, ship packages, all the services of the post office right on your computer. Get a 4-week trial plus $100 in extras, including postage and a digital scale. Go to stamps.com/TV and never go to the post office again.
45 years ago, Kikkoman was the first manufacturing plant to locate in the United States from Japan.
They chose this tiny town of Walworth, Wisconsin to open up this beautiful factory.
We didn't look at this as a short-term project. We are here for that long haul.
You don't hear about people staying at a job for 30, even 40 years. But we're still doing it here at Kikkoman. That is because of the loyalty that they show to their employees.
I have to say, this is the best job I've ever had, and I'll retire here. This is my home. This is my family here.
It's a love affair. We love being in Wisconsin, and they love having us here.
If you have Medicare Parts A and B and want more coverage, guess what? You could apply for a Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan whenever you want. No enrollment window, no waiting to apply. That means now may be a great time to shop for an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan, insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company. Medicare doesn't cover everything, and like all standardized Medicare Supplement Insurance plans, these help cover some of what Medicare doesn't pay. So don't wait. Call now to request your free decision guide. It could help you find the AARP Medicare Supplement plan that works for you. These types of plans have no networks, so you get to choose any doctor who accepts Medicare patients. Rates are competitive, and they're the only plans of their kind endorsed by AARP. Remember, these plans let you apply all year round. So call today, because now's the perfect time to learn more. Go long.
These guys on your left and right, they will always be there, no matter what.
We were America's response to the most catastrophic terrorist attack on U.S. soil.
Legion of Brothers premieres Sunday night at 9 on CNN.
I was addicted to heroin and crack.
My choice was alcohol.
I used anything that I could get my hands on.
You know me. I'm the Addiction Network. Over 1.5 million people have called for help. So why haven't you called? What are you waiting for? This year alone, 1 million people will die from drugs or alcohol. Addiction is a disease. Don't kid yourself. You can't beat it alone. Call now. The Addiction Network is here to take your call 24 hours a day. The call and consultation are free, but your time is running out. Don't wait until you lose your job, or even worse, lose your life. Don't wait until you're put in jail. Don't wait until your child dies. Call the Addiction Network now.
I lost everything, and the only way to get my life back was to pick up the phone and call and go to treatment.
Call 800-466-6415. That's 800-466-6415.
You're pulling that power down. So, pull that orgasm down. Yes.
President Trump making his debut at the United Nations tomorrow, but will his address be overshadowed by new developments in the Russia investigation? Let's discuss now. Ben Shapiro is here as the editor-in-chief at the Daily Wire and former editor-at-large for Breitbart. He is also the author of Brainwashed: How Universities Indoctrinate America's Youth. Also, CNN political commentator Mike Shields, a former chief of staff to Reince Priebus at the RNC. Daniel W. Dresner, a Washington Post contributor, and CNN political commentator Patty Solis-Doyle, former Hillary Clinton presidential campaign manager. Now that is a panel, everyone. So I hope you're buckled in at home and you're all sitting down watching this. Dan, I'm going to start with you. Good evening, by the way, to all of you. Despite a couple of weeks where it didn't dominate the news, the Russia investigation very much back in the headlines. CNN exclusively reporting that the U.S. government wiretapped Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, both before and after the election. Dan, what do you make of this new reporting, and how do you think it's going to impact the ongoing Mueller investigation, if at all?
Well, I mean, we know for a fact that in some cases the Mueller investigation has actually gotten information, I believe, from reports in the news. We know, for example, that they were apparently not aware of the Donald Trump Jr. emails until the New York Times actually published them. So it's possible that this is just going to be something else that you know, they'll get more information from the story, although in this case I would suspect that they already knew about the FBI wiretap. I think the more important issue is that there's just sort of a steady drip, drip, drip on this when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, this is one story. Yesterday we learned that 2 of the Trump lawyers were apparently just chatting about this openly in a restaurant in D.C., as one does if one is not a very bright lawyer. So one keeps wondering what the next sort of, you know, drip to come is going to be. This story is not clearly going to go away.
Mike, we're also learning from a New York Times report that Robert Mueller and his team are engaging in what's being described as shock and awe tactics, even going as far as telling Manafort that they intend to indict him. Why do you think Mueller and his team are going about this investigation in such an aggressive manner?
Well, I mean, I heard someone earlier, and I think they're right. When you make it public that you're going to indict somebody, it seems to me that's a tactic to try and get them to cooperate. And that, to me, doesn't sound like some huge grand conspiracy that they've got their hands around. It sounds to me like they're trying to pick off a person here or there, there's a lot of people in Washington that frankly just don't believe that this investigation is going to show some kind of grand conspiracy. I've told you before, I find it highly, highly unlikely that Russia was able to collude with the Trump campaign because the Trump campaign couldn't collude with the RNC. It couldn't collude with itself. But that doesn't mean that one or two people involved in the campaign are not going to be targets by Mueller. He's going to have to get something to show for all of this stuff that they've done. And so they're going to go after people. They're going to threaten them. They're going to use tactics the FBI does all the time to get people to talk. I think it's pretty effective. I think they're usually pretty good at that. They get one person, they say, we're going to do this to you. Then they start unraveling it and talking to other people. But I think, if they really had their hands around some kind of master strategy, this isn't the sort of thing they'd be doing. I think they're looking at individuals now.
Ben, what's your reaction to all of this?
I think that what you have and what you're going to see is Republicans and Democrats arguing on two completely different tracks. So what I've seen is Republicans saying tonight, Trump is justified in his wiretapping tweet at last, that what this report shows is that Trump was caught up in the wiretapping at Trump Tower, and when he tweeted that he was being wiretapped, sure, the wiretap may not have been aimed at him, but Manafort had an apartment at Trump Tower and was staying at Trump Tower, so he wasn't completely wrong. And there's a lot of interest in vindicating President Trump's long ago tweet that got this whole ball of wax started in the first place. And then you're going to see people, Democrats, basically saying, well, it doesn't really matter whether his tweet was right or not. The question is whether the FISA warrant on Paul Manafort was justified and whether Paul Manafort is guilty of anything. I mean, that actually seems to me a more factual case. I mean, it doesn't seem like justifying Trump's tweet is going to be a great outcome for him in any case, because the real question is going to be what is the underlying crime, if there is any here. I tend to agree, by the way, that just because Manafort may be guilty of something, that certainly doesn't mean that President Trump is guilty of anything.
Exactly. And let's not forget, though, and I think this was what, on the 2nd of September, Patty, the Justice Department came out and said there was no evidence that Obama wiretapped Trump Tower. And the Justice Department would certainly have this information, this new information that is being reported by CNN and the New York Times, or CNN and the New York Times tonight.
Well, I think that still holds true. President Trump wasn't being wiretapped. Paul Manafort was. Now, whether or not some of his Paul Manafort's conversations with, then candidate Trump are sort of put into that wiretap, we don't know. We don't know the answer to that. But I just want to comment to what everybody else said. The idea that President Trump's campaign chairman will get indicted, that's a big problem politically for the president, for the administration, not just for Paul Manafort. This is something that this investigation has been going on for months and months. We've seen a lot of smoke. We haven't seen a fire yet, but if there's an indictment, there's a fire, and that's a problem.
Yeah. And listen, I was speaking to Rick Santorum a bit earlier, Mike, and I think that was the conversation you heard the conversation will be about whether the president's tweet was justified and all that, when that's really not the question. The question is, he thinks the the Trump administration should take this latest reporting very seriously. This is something that they should be concerned about, Mike.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out from what Patty just said that Paul Manafort was removed as campaign chairman because of these types of things. And so it wasn't as though he was sort of brought into the campaign and this was helped along. It was, Steve Bannon became the CEO of the campaign because Paul Manafort was removed, and it was because of these issues. I do think, look, we should never take it lightly. Any part of an investigation like this, we shouldn't take lightly what they're investigating, which is Russians meddling in our election, of course. We also shouldn't take it lightly in a democracy when an administration is investigating the political the political opponent's party during a campaign. That is something that not to be taken lightly. And so I think that President Trump tweeted that. It became a huge fight, but it was something that he was pointing out that is worth talking about, which is, we have to keep an eye on that in our democracy when the sitting president of the United States a Justice Department is investigating a candidate. We also have to be vigilant and keep a very, very important investigative eye on a foreign enemy of the United States, even though Russia is an adversary when they're trying to meddle in our elections. So I think we have room to be able to make sure that we keep an eye on both of those things and keep them in proper context.
All right, we'll continue this conversation. Also, we're going to talk about spicy. You guys ready for that? Okay, don't act too excited. All right, we'll be right back.
Bring it.
to 65%. Call 1-800-BEACHES.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain or knee pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace or knee brace covered by Medicare at little to absolutely no cost to you. 800-915-0487. Right now to see if you qualify. These professional-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, spinal stenosis, and other painful back problems. Our medical-grade durable knee braces are designed for those with osteoarthritis.
Search engine.
Home to go.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest-growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned.
Call or go to MyPillow.com now, and Mike will give you 2 MyPillow premiums for 1 low price. Use the promo code and you'll also receive free shipping. That's 2 MyPillow premiums for 1 low price.
With our 60-day money-back guarantee, you have nothing to lose. Sleep well, America!
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
He is the Twitter president. He rose to power 140 characters at a time. But could his tweets backfire on his presidency?
I think if Donald Trump implodes, it'll be because of Twitter.
Twitter and Trump, Friday night at 10.
Time for new reading glasses? Go to readers.com. With more than 700 styles to choose from, in powers ranging from 1.0 to 7.0. Readers.com also has readers you won't find in stores, like bifocals, sun readers, and computer readers. Choose from hundreds of fashionable styles and colors, all under $20. Then just type in this coupon code at checkout, and you'll save up to 40% through this special offer. Order now and we'll quickly deliver your readers right to your door. Plus, all of our readers are absolutely worry-free because they're backed by our 100% happiness guarantee. Save up to 40%, get convenient fast delivery, and a 100% happiness guarantee. So go online to readers.com to find your perfect pair of reading glasses for under $20. But hurry, don't miss the offer to save up to 40% now. Go to readers.com and enter this coupon code at checkout. That's readers.com.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
And we're back. Sean Spicer, President Trump's former press secretary, making a surprise cameo appearance at the Emmy Awards. But not everybody was laughing. Ben Shapiro, Mike Shields, Dan Dresner, and Patty Solis Doyle. So, Patty, he may be gone from the White House, but he's not out of the spotlight. Sean Spicer continued his, I don't know, could you call it a redemption tour? I guess we will. Let's call it that for the sake of just calling it something. Last night at the Emmys, poking fun at his press conference after Trump's inauguration. Take a look at this.
Unfortunately, at this point, we have no way of knowing how big our audience is. I mean, is there anyone who could say how big the audience is? Sean, do you know?
This will be the largest audience to witness an Emmys, period. Both
consistent basis. And then he left the White House and went on national television and basically made a joke about betraying the trust of the American people. And that's pretty offensive. Not only is it offensive, but it's wildly hypocritical. You know, Sean Spicer has spent the last 8 months basically, you know, lambasting the media, calling them fake news, calling them irresponsible, calling them elitist and liberal. And what does he do? He shows up at the glitziest, elitist, most liberal event that Hollywood has to offer, and all for a buck. For, you know, it's really shameful, and I didn't find it funny. And you know, I'm no fan of Sean Spicer, clearly.
Mike Shields, I mean, from the expression on your face, it looks like you agree with every word she just said.
No, not at all.
That was
I
sarcasm.
Mean, yeah, okay, thanks. I mean, first of all, in full disclosure, I've known Sean for years. He used to work for me at the RNC. Look, I mean, we have completely lost our sense of humor. It's almost, even comedy is now partisan. So it's funny to make fun of people when it's from a liberal perspective, but it's not funny when it comes from a conservative perspective, and it's not even funny when someone's admitting to something. I mean, when Sean was in the White House as the press secretary, there were people that would say, we take ourselves too seriously. Sean would do better just to go along with the Melissa McCarthy parody of him. Maybe he should show up at Saturday Night Live. I think that's a good idea. I think the president should too. I think if the president knows people at NBC, he ought to go to Saturday Night Live and sort of join in on the joke. So Sean's now joining in on the joke. And I mean, watching the press corps in Washington, D.C. today freak out over this speaks volumes about why people think the way they do of the media. I mean, it's like we had a competition in the last 24 hours to see who takes themselves more seriously, Hollywood or Washington reporters.
Ben, I want to get you in because is this more evidence of the disconnect with Hollywood and you know, I guess elites, as conservatives would call some conservatives, and the rest of the country? Because listen, we're told that at the governor's ball last night, Sean Spicer was so popular you could barely eat his dinner.
Yeah, I mean,
people were coming over to say hello.
One of the things that really irritates me about a lot of this stuff is the merger of entertainment and politics means that we don't take policy seriously at all. So there's this sort of rock'em sock'em robots where Sean Spicer is utterly irredeemable and we must never allow him to make a joke again. But at the same time, and they say the same sorts of stuff about President Trump. He's evil, he's terrible. Hollywood last night bashing the living crap out of him at the Emmys. President Trump in the last 2 weeks has governed like a moderate Democrat. Right? I mean, he's basically given the Democrats everything they want on DACA. Right? He signed a budget deal that they like. The president is apparently making moves now on the Paris Agreement. Like, these are all things that Democrats are sort of okay with, and yet we're still treated to the spectacle of WWE, Trump tweeting things about Hillary Clinton being hit with a golf ball, and Democrats getting very mad at Sean Spicer. And I just feel like there's two narratives. The reality, which is that a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. are basically governing as though they get along, and a bunch of people in Hollywood ripping on each other for entertainment purposes. Again, one other point here, you know, this idea that Sean Spicer is he's so out of normal. You know, we can't normalize him. Okay, Jay Carney used to fib on behalf of President Obama all the time. We had a president who was indicted for who was convicted, not convicted of perjury, but impeached, you know, in my lifetime. And we're going to pretend that Sean Spicer is the end of politics and he can never be allowed on any show in the history of man because he was particularly horrible at lying. Well, let's be real about this. Sean Spicer is a big target because he's horrible at lying.
Ben, that's not exactly. I mean, that's not being fair. Listen, Bill Clinton lied under oath, right? I mean, and you can't say that about Jay Carney, and was impeached for it. So, and
yeah, you would have him on the Oscars, wouldn't you?
If you made a joke about it, everyone would laugh.
I think it's apples and oranges. You're talking about someone who just admitted today that he said he should not have been so hard on reporters, and basically admitted that he lied in his first press conference.
But Don, isn't that what you want people to do?
American people.
Is it, if you don't allow people to make a joke about themselves, basically admit what you've been criticizing them for, and you just crush them when they do that, then what's the incentive for anybody to ever say, you know, maybe I was a little harsh, or maybe I was just doing my job, or I can now make a joke about this, which is accepting the premise of the
attack. Here's the thing. I think you guys are getting it wrong. People are not are so upset with Sean Spicer. They're upset with the folks who were there who invited Sean Spicer on because they think that they are normalizing Sean Spicer. So I get what you're saying.
And that was enjoyed, by the way. So then Democrats can argue
I'm actually upset. I'm actually upset with both of them. And Mike, just to respond to you, you know, it would have been more sincere if Sean Spicer had apologized while he was in the job. Well, if he had come out on the podium and said, you know what, I was wrong. The crowd wasn't as big as I thought it was. Or I had my facts wrong. But no, he does it only after he leaves and in order to make money.
Okay.
He's doing it to make money.
Dan has not weighed in on this. Dan, what do you think? Is this are these appearances
Thank God
they risk normalizing? But no, seriously, it's a member of the news media. My sincere question is, does this risk normalizing misinformation?
No, because obviously when Sean Spicer was at the Academy Awards, he was mocking the fact that he was clearly fibbing when he was at the White House. At the Emmys. He was clearly fibbing when he was at the press secretary. I mean, I would say two things about this. The first is that the problem with Sean Spicer when he was press secretary was that the very first thing he did was lie. You know, the very first thing, literally like a few hours after the inauguration took place, he goes out and makes that ridiculous statement about the inauguration crowd size. It wasn't just a lie, it was such a bad, obvious lie that there was no point in ever taking Sean Spicer seriously after that. And therefore, I actually do feel a small amount of pity for Sean Spicer, because Sean Spicer falls into the rare category of people that is actually the second best person to portray himself, in which we're in a situation where Melissa McCarthy is without question a funnier and also more poignant character than Sean Spicer playing Sean Spicer. So you have to feel at least a small swell of sympathy for this guy who was a bad liar.